Hi all, and welcome back to the neighborhood. This is my first review of a Dunu product, and they sent me one of their newer entry line items, the Dunu Titan S. At a price of around $80, can it keep up with the likes of the Blonde A8, the Tin Hi-Fi T3 Plus, and the Moodrop Aria? Let's get into it. So from a packaging perspective, I really like what Dunu has done here. The packaging itself is compact in size with a nice piece of graphic art on the front. Slide off the sleeve and open the box printed sparsely with the Dunu logo, and you're greeted by a bright blue, gold zipper-lined carrying pouch. This is the same blue that women's purses are often manufactured in. While some might find this styling decision to have a bit more pizzazz than they would like, one thing is certain. It's not really understated, and I quite like the bold choice Dunu has made here myself. Inside the case is a copper cable, a black plastic-lined clip, and a plethora of silicone ear tips. The cable itself terminates in a smaller-sized, right-angled 3.5mm unbalanced jack. The initiating connection is a slightly recessed 2-pin, and the plastic housing of the 2-pin connector is shaped specifically to match the design lines of the IEM itself. This is a nice touch by Dunu, but you probably aren't going to end up using this cable elsewhere as a result. Also, as a positive and a negative, affixed to the cable is a rubberized cable tie. The cable tie is a nice soft elastic material, but it's not removable unless you're going to cut it off with a pair of scissors. The Y-split of the cable is a nice piece of metal, again bearing the Dunu brand. But, again, a cheaper piece of plastic is used as a chin cinch here, which, although in line with the price point, does not display the effort Dunu has put into the rest of this design, and it cheapens the overall aesthetic at least a bit. I've picked on a number of companies for doing this recently, and I'll continue to do so until this practice is abolished. All the silicone tips that come with the Dunu Titan S are nice and comfortable and come in a variety of sizes that should fit most people's ears well. Additionally, these tips actually have an influence on the tuning on this set, with the red board set being the bassiest of the boys, the blue board set being the most treble focused, and the transparent set being the most balanced. At the $80 price point, I think Dunu has been smart here, choosing to offer an IEM that can be tip-tuned somewhat in order to align with more people's preferences. This is an affordable IEM that is designed for the mass market appeal, and it shows not only in its design choices, but also its sound-related decisions. But before we get into specifics regarding the sound, let's get into the shell itself, as there are some interesting decisions made here by Dunu as well. The shell is all metal and somewhat slim in its profile. It's mostly lightweight and small enough, but has enough heft to it to sit snugly in your ears without jostling around too much during movement. I not only like the build of this shell from an appearance perspective, as it looks like the IEM that Master Chief would wear in Halo, but I also respect it from a sound design perspective, as it appears to be open back or at least semi-open back in its construction. There aren't a lot of open back designs for IEMs in the marketplace, so Dunu took somewhat of an educated, calculated risk here in making this decision. And needless to say, given that these are open-backed or semi-open-backed, isolation can't help but be compromised here, at least to a certain extent. Inside the shell is a single 11mm driver with a polycondensated crystal polymer diaphragm. So Dunu took some risk in the shell design, but not really in the driver implementation here. In any case, did Dunu's risks with the Titan S pay off with regard to the only outcome that really matters? The sound. Ultimately, I think so, but I do have to say up front that these don't necessarily sound very open-backed per se to my ears. Having said that, the staging is decently wide and separation is distinctly good or better than most in the price range, two characteristics which might be enhanced by the open-back or semi-open-back design choice here. In terms of general resolution and technical capabilities, I'd say these at least keep up with the Tin Hi-Fi T3 Plus I just reviewed. but these aren't going to compete with other standout IEMs above $100. So for the price range of $80, the Titan S is a solid pick. But what really separates the Titan S from others in the price range is its tonality and vocal timbre. From a tonal perspective, the Titan S rests firmly on the warmer side of neutral, voicing a slightly chunky and somewhat beefy sound. It's not as thick and full-bodied as something like the Tri-Meteor, but it's definitely leaning in that direction compared to other IEMs like the Moondrop Aria, the Blonde A8, and the Tin Hi-Fi T3 Plus. Vocal timbre was a standout on the Titan S, however. Vocals sound superbly natural and vary in their forwardness depending upon tip selection. With my tip preference, the clear tips, vocals are slightly forward and well articulated without any shout or fatigue. If I had one slight nitpick, it would be to point out that there is some minor uncanny valley at play here with regard to horned and stringed instruments at times, which perplexes me given that these do so well with vocal timbre. So they do better with vocal timbre than they do with instrumental timbre. Odd and kind of confusing, but true nevertheless. Still, this is so minor of an outcome that I think it will only bother a select few in the end. But as a reviewer, I still need to point out to others that at least I hear it so that you can take it into account. With regard to the sound profile itself, again, it changes with tip selection, but generally speaking, the bass is well represented, but there is a gentle roll-off in the sub-bass. Dynamics are definitely average, and neither overly embellished nor particularly striking. The word normative comes to mind. Still, as with its sound in general, I describe its overall bass presentation as mostly natural, balanced, and musical in its sound. The mids presentation is characterized as warmly detailed, with the early mids riding the neutral line and the later mids becoming more forward as they escalate towards the upper regions of the frequency response. Peripheral sonics in the mid-range and early treble are notably clear and properly enunciated. Despite having good extension, the treble isn't the airiest in its quality. Still, the word assertive comes to mind in describing the upper mid-range and treble of this set. There is a certain amount of forwardness here, but it's still acceptable to the ears, and not assaultive or aggressive, given the Titan S's warmer tones. The end result is a slightly forward, pleasing, and soothing presentation, without any real sheen or glare, unlike competitors with similar tunings like the Moondrop Aria. While I find the blue board tips to get a bit hot in the treble, the translucent tips are just right to my preferences. To summarize, what one gets with the Titan S is a slightly warm, mostly balanced sound with a treble presentation that is somewhat forward but acceptable to the ear. At the $80 price point, these are for the person who prefers a warmer tilt, but isn't willing to sacrifice naturalism or treble sophistication. In other words, the Titan S is a warmer, less bombastic alternative to others in the price range, such as the Moondrop Aria, Blonde A8, or the Tin Hi-Fi T3 Plus. While its open back design is both unique and a risk in some ways, in the end I describe both its design choices and its accessory package as the right mix of being bold, tried and true, and well thought out. And with that, I'm out for now.